Nicola, did you raise your hand?
Just ask to be unmuted.
Okay. Looks like we lost Jeremiah. Let me see if I can. All right, well, let's start with Tay. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. We'll see if we can get.
Sorry, Tay Evans. I'm an associate member.
And Nicola.
Nicola Meserve, associate member.
Let me just message John, see if we can. All right, I haven't gotten a response. Chuck, are we, considering what I just discussed, are we able to have Nicola or Tay, step up? John's on, but looks like the communication's broken for some reason.
Yeah. Let's ask this guy to unmute and find out if
Oh, he just texted me back. He's saying he can't figure out how to get his mic to work.
Can he call in? Ask him if he can call in.
He's coming back on his iPad. He'll be back on in a second.
Sure. That solves that. That answers the question you just asked. I guess I have to say I'm uncomfortable with that setup. I know the town allows it, but I'm uncomfortable with that. So let's use it sparingly.
We'll give him a second. Yeah. Hey, John. Sorry, you're still muted there. Go ahead.
All right. I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem. So go ahead. I think everybody knows you at this point. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You'll be the last to vote.
John Sullivan, member.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we'll move right into our agenda. Chuck, unless you had anything else, move right to the first item on the agenda.
Yeah, let's move to the first item, 1312 Main Street, and I'm going to unmute Jack
1312.
Sullivan.
Great. So this is 1312 Main Street. This is a continued public hearing for the notice of intent filed by Beth Sherlin and the Reading Animal Clinic under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for construction of a paved parking lot, concrete walkway, rain garden, and associated site grading. The work is within the 100-foot buffer zone, and this is map 51, lot 7983, DEP file number 2700738. Just a quick recap. Jack had, the applicant had presented last time. Jack presented the project. We had scheduled a site visit out at the site, and I know Chuck and Anika were able to walk with Steve Erickson of Norse Environmental, some of the areas. But so Jack, I guess I'll turn it over to you if there's any other updates, and then we can.
Jack, before you start, Jack, can you let me know if everyone in your group is unmuted?
Beth needs to be unmuted. And Mike and Deb needs to be unmuted.
I guess Mike's doing it. I can see his eyes going back and forth, so I'm not going to mute them again.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Jack Sullivan. And as the chairman stated, there was a site walk that Chuck was out on and some members of the commission. And basically, I wanted to see what came out of that site walk. I heard, you know, there's some thoughts. Norse feels it's not a wetland area. I think Chuck and some members of the commission thought it might be. And I think that's really what this meeting is about, because if it's not a wetland, then there are some minor changes the commission asked for last time that I can make. If it turns out they feel there has to be more investigation done of this area, it could change some of the design plans. So I'd really like to get feedback from the commission and Chuck as to what the outcome of that site visit was.
Great. Chuck, I know Anika was planning on delivering some notes, but I think she had sent them to you. Do you have kind of what you guys observed out there?
I don't have Anika's notes, but I do have the pictures that we took while we were out there. So let me just start sharing the screen, and hopefully this will work. So it was. Does everyone see that? First off, I'm always unsure if
Yep.
Sure. So it was in this area here, beyond what is the existing parking lot, gravel parking lot, that we noticed a low depression. So I'm going to switch to some of these other ones. So here's the parking lot. Let's go to this one here. Get to the right one. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you see the aerial with the 3 areas highlighted? So, Mike, do you see that? Yes. Okay. So the areas, here's the veterinary hospital right here. Here is the parking lot from an aerial photo in 2019 that I used. And down here at the bottom, next to the existing house, which is off the property, is a flagged wetland. And this becomes important later. We checked out this area above, right in the center, and a smaller area here. And what we saw was in these low areas, dominated by buckthorn with some high bush blueberry, royal fern, and cinnamon fern. And the fern was visible along with the buckthorn as it extended towards the parking area and driveway. The ground rises up as it gets closer to the fence and the parking. We did 3 soil augers in this area here. We did 4 in this area here. And we did 2 over here in the flagged wetland. That's not on our plan and that's not part of our project. So it's flagged with numbers, and to me it looks, although it's not in front of us, it looks like it's been flagged by the same wetland scientist with, and it's going to be a wetland. So within 18 inches of the soil, within 18 inches of the topsoil, we came across an E horizon that was gray from leaching liquefied minerals and washing them away to the ground. They can either be washed away or they can consolidate into nodules in this lower layer. We actually saw that it was a depleted soil. And when we did this augering, these 2 areas were very similar in our findings. And then we compared it to what we found over here, and it was also very similar. I'm gonna try to quickly change to the pictures now. Let me see if I can get those pictures going. Okay, so just give me a minute here. Let me pull up my screen. That is. I seem to have lost those pictures. Let me go to,
Chuck, while you're looking for them, I don't mean to distract you while you're looking for them.
For a second.
The area, so you marked down 3 areas there. My recollection when you and I went out there the first time before the first meeting was that buckthorn and the lower, I recall seeing that flagged wetland area. There was almost like clearly like an elevated or a berm or something. And then it came back down low, and it looked like what was flat, what was flagged on the plans also continued out. Is that the middle area that you highlighted?
Say that again.
So I don't know if you've got what the 3 areas that you marked down the plan there, but ultimately I thought when I went out there, I recall seeing the area that was flagged, the area up, you know, on the north side that was like isolated. And then it seemed like what was flagged in the plans kind of kept on extending. You know, I think the plans that we received with Norse's flagging has the wetlands kind of trailing off to the south and moving away from the project. So I think one of the areas that I was originally concerned about was, you know, the buckthorn just kind of continues, the low area continues. You know, it's almost directly south of the parking area, maybe southwest. And that might be the middle area that you highlighted, but I wasn't sure if that was an area you guys took any cores or looked at.
In all of those areas, we took, we did soil probes.
Okay.
And this is going to be the best I can do here. Maybe this will, you guys can see this.
You get it working?
Working. You know what I'm going to do, Mike? I'm going to send these to you. I'm
Okay.
going to see if you can put them up.
I think ultimately too, Chuck, so, I mean, and I think we've been summarizing what you're providing is somewhat fitting into what Jack has said, but kind of consistent with what I had seen when I had gone out the first time. I think ultimately there's some question associated with where the wetlands are. And I think, you know, vegetation has given some indications that there's wetland areas, that there's low-lying areas. You know, the probes, I think Steve had indicated to you guys that these weren't, that it wasn't sort of enough.
So do you have those, Mike? Maybe you can put those up. So when we went out there, there was signs of cinnamon fern, royal fern, which is an obligate species. There was buckthorn, pine, maple. There was a whole mix of things. These areas were low-lying depressions. They seemed to be connected. And, you know, not just hydraulically, but definitely connected. They were close to the parking area and they were close to the driveway. Steve said they were E-horizon and he felt that they didn't meet the criteria. The commission, or at least me and Anika, when we went over to that other area, felt that that lower half down by the point is the E-horizon, and it looks depleted. It's a very sandy soil. There are no nodules in this piece here, but we wanted to present this information to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I think when I spoke with Anika, similar to what you just said, she had felt like they took the probes in those areas and then went over to that flagged wetland area, took a probe, and said, the soils look exactly the same. That you wouldn't have known the difference between the probes. I guess ultimately, I think what we're all coming to is, is this something that we're looking to get some additional opinion so that we can, I think, Jack, from our standpoint, I know, I'm trying to see. Sorry. Jack, from our standpoint, I know, at least the ones just to the west of the parking area may have some impacts to your project if it is a wetland. I think I'm interested in making sure that we understand where the wetland line is here. I know, that there's implications to your project, to other areas. So I guess I wanted to get the feel of the commission, but my take would be this seems like one where, consistent with some previous projects that we've had, is let's get a professional in, to confirm the area of the wetland. And if it's a third-party review to say, is that the line they see consistent? Do they see that this area is a wetland area, and try to give the commission some feedback, since there is some disagreement with what we're seeing versus the applicant. I'll go before I turn it over to you, Jack. I guess I'll let the commission know if they have any other thoughts. I think I see a hand. I'll open it up to public comment in a second here.
And Mike, I think we want to bring up that other point also before we turn it over to the public. So,
yeah.
So do you want me to go ahead? Is that what you said?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So when I was reviewing the project today and I was trying to set up those pictures that didn't get down to my laptop, I did notice something else that I thought that it needed to be explained, and it shows. So what I want to highlight here is this line, this bordering line where the property is, and then the parking area in this area here, and here's the entrance. And, assuming this is taken in 2020, I was looking at the aerial photos, and I noticed that this is a 2019 photo, and in this area here, which is approximately 7,000 square feet, there's trees and vegetation. And, we weren't told about a parking lot expansion in 2019. And I think that would have, that should have come in front of the Conservation Commission. So I'm wondering if there's any information about this area here, which has trees in it, which has vegetation in it, and has less cars in it than what is out on the site now. So that's my question. That's what I found, but I'd like to know if there's any explanation to that.
I think we lost Jack for a second here because I'm letting back in. Jack, I think we lost you there, but did you hear Chuck's question?
I did get lost and I missed some of that, but
okay. So the question was in regards to the parking area. Looking between the aerials, it looks like there was like the parking area has expanded recently, and I guess there was a question of is there any information associated with, was some area taken to increase the parking area size recently?
What the question behind the existing building? It looks like the parking area is increased, and how was that?
Yeah.
From like aerial photographs or something?
Yeah, it's comparing the 2019 aerial photographs versus kind of the where the size of the parking area that's laid out in the plans.
I wouldn't have that information. I don't know. Since I did my survey work there 2 years ago, that's how it existed. Going back 2 years. If the owners are on, they could try to answer that question. But as far since I've been involved with the project, that's how it's been.
Yeah, there was, I don't know if I'm unmuted. There was a fence there, and we haven't expanded it. We've just been parking there, and we put some gravel there, but there's been no tree removal or any kind of brush removal or anything like that. It's just, it's been that way for a few years, I think.
All right.
We plow back there,
So-
so I don't know if the plow in the winter or something, but there's been no formalized increase. And there's a chain link fence there, so there's only so far you can go.
How
Yeah.
long was the chain link fence put in? When was that put in? I mean, that seems to be right on the property line.
More than 7 years ago, since before I owned it, I did not put that fence in.
Yeah, the picture was I don't know. I didn't, I felt like, wow, this just happened, because it says 2019 on it. And even if it was 2018, it seems to me that there's a lot of work. There's double the size of the parking lot for sure. And that would affect this project if it just happened. So.
No, we've done no work back there. I mean, if it's, I don't know how it would be bigger than it originally was, because it's a fence, unless, again, like I said, some of the brush got moved away with the plow or something, but I've done nothing formal at all back there, because I knew I was going to be building a new building, so I didn't want to, and I had no plan to do that anyway.
So, we've got two items here. I want to try to keep this moving. I guess from the rest of the commission, what's the feelings on like a third-party review, to get some confirmation in those wetland areas, or those areas in question?
Yeah, so I'd say if we've had members of the commission out there and they have maybe some differing opinions. I have not been out to the site myself. I mean, I've driven by it and I've stopped by, but I haven't walked the site. But if there is, questions about where the line lies, then I would say that we should have someone else come in and look at it.
Jack, Beth, do you guys have any issues? Does that make sense to you guys? I think that's, generally my take has been with these third-party reviews that it helps move the process along. When it seems like, there's just a couple areas out there that don't seem to be in agreement.
I know, and I did speak to Norris after the site walk with Chuck and the commission members, and
Yep.
He felt that even though the soils did have like a white layer to it, and it looks like a wetland at first glance, he says it's not. But where some of the commission members feel it might be, I did explain to the owner a third-party review means that, the owner would have to pay for that third-party review. And I guess if there's a disagreement, that's the direction we need to go. I was hoping it wouldn't get to that level based on the site walk we had, but I guess we have some disagreement. So I'm not sure how to move this forward without the third-party review.
Yeah, I think short of trying to recognize those areas and make sure the project compensates for that, I think it's the best move going forward, just as confirmation. I mean, I think there's enough, it's not one small area. I think there's enough areas that, I'm looking for some consistency and frankly, another professional to say yes or no, they may be in agreement with Norris. So I think that's the best path forward.
I guess on our end, we're just hoping it's something. I know all the consultants are very busy and we're coming up on winter season, so we'd be hoping it's something that could take place quickly. But I don't know if you have a list of consultants or if you have to put this out to get some pricing and schedules, but we would hope it would happen quickly.
So we have a list that we've used in the past. I think generally we've tried to at least get this out to, I think when we first started this, some of these peer reviews, I think it was, as long as it's below a certain price, it doesn't necessarily have to go out to a certain quantity, but we've tried to get multiples just to make sure we're keeping we're keeping the number in check. I know we've had a lot of luck with Ann on the Main Street project on the north, that's LEC Environmental. We had Horsley Witten do the Howard Street. I think either one of those would be good for this job. I thought Ann was really helpful on the project, and she's right down the street. So I think the proximity helps control cost and schedule too, for her to get here. So, I think that's who's the best two to reach out to. We've had luck with those in the past.
So I was just going to say the process for the applicant, we do ask consultants for a bid. You get to see what it's going to cost, and then the commission picks the best qualified person to do the job. And at that point, you would need to get a check to town hall. And when that check is deposited, we can start the process of reviewing the site. And then that would, the reviewer would come to a meeting and make a report and speak on the findings. So
we're talking about 2 more meetings for this, or 1 more?
So it's winter time. It's if we can get a person out there before the snow comes down, you're talking at least 2 more meetings. Sometimes it's taken up to a month to get that check processed. Yeah, welcome to town hall. So yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised myself, but that's it seems to take a few days to get to me, takes a few days to get upstairs, then they have to set up the account. So that's what you're looking at. The only alternative is what Mike said, is to address those areas as if they're wetlands and draw in the jurisdictional setbacks for them and see if your project works.
Well, the other option is to just, this is not the main project, this is the peripheral project. So, I don't know that I need to do anything to that building. I don't know, I can talk about that. It's a peripheral part of this project. So
yeah.
But the other issue, again, I haven't talked to Jack about any redesign work, but if I need that parking and I have to redesign it, it may end up going into the front of the building, which is not what the CPDC wants. So then we're going to run into issues with them. So then we go back and forth, between boards and more delays and, so, but I guess there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, I think, Beth, that my suggestion would be the best path is, because if there are other options for you, of whether that's looking at a redesign or steps, but I think the best path would still be, we can still reach out to a third-party consultant, at least get the proposal, and that way as you're figuring it, like, we're not wasting time while you kind of figure out some of your options and the path that you want to go. And that way, if you say, yes, I'd like to continue down that road, we've at least have it in hand, and we can keep that moving forward and not lose any time while you kind of figure out if there's other options for you.
Okay.
Mike, what would the third-party review be reviewing? So
yeah, I think our goal would be to review the wetland areas. So I think we've written a similar scope before. So I'm trying to think what the example, but is I can't think of what the roadway is. Randall Road, was that it? Where, you know, it was a site visit, right? We asked for a site visit and a meeting as essentially that was the scope. You know, the site visit to map the wetlands.
No, I understand that part. Obviously, there's going to be a site visit, there's going to be one meeting, and there's going to be some
Yep.
documentation, but are you containing, you feel like it's just the wetlands that you want to have delineated, or if they become BBW, do you want to have some drainage questions in there? Do you want to talk about the parking lot and its proximity? Is there any lingering questions that the consultant would handle?
Yeah, I think if those areas are considered part of the wetlands, I think we would want them to understand the drainage area that's proposed and how that functions, and if there's, I think specifically to that back parking lot area, is kind of what I'm looking at for the scope. I don't think we're looking at a full review of the drainage, the piping and the engineering analysis, but I would like just a general review of like that buffer area where the soft structures are.
So,
You look like I didn't answer that well.
I think if it turns out like the rain garden and the areas are outside like the 35-foot no structure zone, then I think engineering's done a thorough review of the drainage system. I would hope it could just stay more towards, let's figure out what's wet, what's not wet. Once we know if it turns out there are additional wetlands, then we show the associated buffers and then see if you can modify my design. I'm hoping I don't. I'm hoping we find that area out back isn't wet and this is our plan, but at least we'd at least get the wetlands determined. I'm hoping it doesn't go into a full drainage design.
Yeah, not a drainage design, but maybe some help on the sheet flow from the parking lot and how the design of the rain garden could possibly maximize its effectiveness and delivery to the wetland. That would satisfy, I guess, the only thing that could happen in the parking area. But I think they're kind of linked, but not the whole drainage for the entire site, but just that sheet flow, just the water delivery, because it's so close. And there might be a better option that the consultant comes up with also.
Okay.
So, and speaking about the other building, I was wondering if any of the stormwater, I know we're stopping kind of and saying, oh, we need third-party review. But I was wondering if any of the stormwater from that building comes across the parking lot, across the road, and enters into the jurisdictional, I'm going to call it the jurisdictional parking lot.
It does. Right now it does.
So the commission is going to the commission will want to review that also, just to make sure that what's coming across is not, altering or harming the wetland in some way. It's within our rights, within the conservation's regulations. If areas outside of 100-foot buffer zone usually usually means the stormwater systems. So I guess in a way you wouldn't be done with us if you decided to table this project.
Or I'd have to come up with an alternative parking arrangement. Like right now, the way I have this designed, I am sending water over because I'm sending it over to the rain garden. I would have to do what Beth said and try to put parking out front. I'd still be within the 100 feet on the existing building though. It's something we'd have to look at. I think the third-party review is something we need to look at. It's probably the best way to move this project forward, even though, we're anxious to try to break ground in the spring. So we're trying to keep to a schedule here. So this is a little bit unforeseen. But that's why we just want to keep it moving forward.
Yeah, Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I think the best process to keep it moving on the commission end, is to assume you're moving forward with the what you have in front of us, and we can try to solicit a scope of work from the third party, and then if something changes before that, we can always readjust. But that way we don't hold any of that up. Beth, go ahead. I think you need to unmute. Go ahead.
So my question is, if we choose one of the, we go for the expert, and then do you guys have to have a meeting before we choose the expert, or do we just have a meeting? We might have two meetings, delay in getting the expert and getting the
So unfortunately, the Conservation Commission has to do everything at a public meeting. So the hope is that we could get these bids back between this meeting and the next, and then everyone could agree on which party to use. And then that next 2 weeks would be where the action takes place. So we would be into December, end of December.
One of the I would say benefits is we do only have one meeting in December. We do, because of the timing that we're meeting here, we only had one meeting in November. We've got a little extra time in between each one to A, make sure we get bids in, B, if we can select one at the next meeting, we can give this extra time before that first meeting in January to get someone out there, and hopefully the weather holds for us. So
can they not do this if there's snow on the ground? Is that or if it's
it's not that it can't be done. It gets difficult, particularly with vegetation, and I think particularly if you get really deep into the winter, the vegetation gets really tough to identify, and if the ground's frozen, that it's never going to happen. So we had snow in November, so that hasn't stopped people right now. So if you get too deep into the winter, it does hinder it.
I'm not happy with the delay, but I do appreciate your protection of the wetlands. I'm on board with that. So I just wanted.
Okay. No, we appreciate that. All right. Yes, are there any other comments from the commission? And I'll open up to the public. Go ahead, Chuck.
I have a comment after the public talks.
All right. I'll open up to the comment. Please just state your name and address. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Catherine Seversky. And address too? Is that
Yes.
what you said? My address is 44 Chapel Hill Drive. My comments, I'm trying to stay within the scope of the Conservation Commission. Trying to do my due diligence. I have an initial question though, because the Community Planning and Development Commission has this project labeled as 1310/1312. And with the Conservation Commission, it's only the 1312. And the reason that I believe that is important, or the reason it confuses me why there's two different labels, is the answers on the questionnaire regarding endangered species, wetlands, and other issues, which is your scope. There is a, and I based it on the Oliver Mass GIS online mapping tool from the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. On 1310 in the corner, there is a vernal pond noted on their website as, I don't know, endangered or protected. And from what I just heard the discussion in this meeting, there are wetlands on the property 1310 that slope to the south, which slope directly down to the vernal pond on the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Programs list. I'm not sure. I'm a layman to all of this, and I'm doing my best to grasp it all.
You're doing a really good job.
It's a concern of mine that if we're talking about drainage, and in the plans that I read, they do state that a portion of the runoff of the parking lot will go into the rain garden and filtration system, which I have yet to understand completely, but I'm working on that too. But I'm wondering about the other portion, and will that drain directly into a vernal pond? Although I know that it's not the 1312 lot, but between the two plans and what's getting approved, it seems that they're labeled very differently. And without making an accusation, I want to be careful. I wonder if the 1310 was left off of the Conservation Commission's label to avoid discussing the drainage into the vernal pond. Thank you.
So I can start with, and this may just be a labeling item. The properties before us are lots 79 and 83. I don't know what that corresponds to 1310 and 1312. What I can assure you is that, you know, the way the conservation looks at this is the wetlands are delineated, and anything within 100 feet of the wetlands is within our jurisdiction. And so the primary area that's within our jurisdiction, because of where the wetlands are located, is the southern lot, whichever address that's probably 1310.
Yes, that's the 1310.
So that's primarily where we're looking. Now, what Chuck had mentioned earlier is drainage. If drainage from 1312 is being taken and carried to 1310, and particularly in that rain garden or through sheet flow, that is ultimately, we have the right to observe and understand the conditions and how that may impact the wetlands if that it's going there. So from that respect, we are looking at the project as a whole and not just one address or the other. And really, you know, 1310 is really the focus of ours, because that's within, most of that is within our jurisdiction, whereas a lot of 1312, particularly the building itself, is outside of our jurisdiction. So hopefully that answers the piece of that. Now, it is interesting, and Chuck, we have the National Heritage Vernal Pools mapped on our WebGeo. Is that correct? You know, you're on mute. Chuck, did you hear the question? I think you're still on mute. So,
I don't know if I'm muted.
yeah, go ahead, Beth.
One of the confusions is, and we're trying to rectify this with the town hall, is the property that I bought was labeled 1310. It's really not 1310. 1310 is the house behind me. So, and the owner of that house is getting weird bills for the property and all that stuff, my property. So they're trying to rectify it. So that's, I didn't look at the different numbers, but I'm imagining that that's what the 1310
Okay.
vernal pool map.
All right. So what I will say is we will look into, you know, where the vernal pool is identified, and because there are restrictions associated with vernal pools and work that can be done within the area of vernal pools. So I'm glad you brought it up. We'll take a look at the National Heritage Site and see where they have that vernal pool located, and you know, and see if it's something that is added as part of the jurisdiction.
Okay.
But I'm glad you noticed it.
Yeah, well, when you said it slopes down to that southerly point, it just seems to become more poignant. I have one other point to make, but if there are other people in line, I'll step back. And
I said this was Sam.
What was that, Dave?
I'm sorry, I'm talking to the admiral.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments from the public?
I think it's just me.
Did you have another question?
Well, I have one more point. It seems like this will continue on to another meeting, so it doesn't seem important to make now, but it is about the lighting of the parking lot. And that might cross between this planning commission and and also the Planning and Development Commission. So it might not be important today. And I know we've already gone over the 15 minutes. So I can table that for now and wait till another meeting.
Sure. And what I can just tell you is lighting is, particularly as far as how it shines into the protected areas, is something that we do look at and try to understand. When it is outside, that I want to preface that we do limit it to what's associated with wetlands and that area. So as it moves away from the wetland area, we generally don't have that same attention because it's not part of our jurisdiction. So
Right.
there is a different piece of that may be part of planning for you, but
yeah,
sure.
it'll go back and forth between the two of you, I'm sure. So it's not important tonight. We've covered a lot. So.
All right. So Jack, Beth, I think we've got a path forward at least to try to keep this moving. We'll reach out to two of the typical wetland scientists that we've been able to successfully use in the past, and that way we can try to get a scope of work for the next meeting, and keep this moving. And if something changes or you start looking at this and you see there's options, obviously, just let Chuck know and we can address accordingly. But we wouldn't vote on like moving forward with that process until the next meeting because it has to be at the public meeting. So there's certainly time. Is there anything else? If not, I guess, do I hear a motion? Dave, I think you're muted.
Make a motion to continue 1302. I don't even know. Is it 1302 or it's 1310?
1312.
1312 Main Street.
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor?
David Panett in favor.
Scott Keith in favor.
Go ahead, John.
John Sullivan in favor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. The next item on the agenda, right-of-way by rail line. This was a continued public hearing for an RDA by Keolis. There was some additional, just some minor changes we had asked for on the paperwork. They have asked to continue. So could I get a motion on that?
It's just a motion to continue.
I second.
Michael Flynn in favor.
Panett in favor.
Scott Keith in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is 31 Lila Lane. This is to open a public hearing for request for determination of applicability filed by Derek and Christina Pryor under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, Reading Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The owner is seeking to cut 8 trees and grind stumps in place. Additionally, the owner is seeking to install a fence and provide plantings to mitigate the impact of the tree removal. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone and to the BVW. The application and plans can be reviewed on the Conservation Division page under current projects. This is map 56, lot 36, RDA 2020-12. And we'll turn it over to Derek and Christina. I can see you guys there. Is there anybody else that you need us to unmute?
I'll be on this hearing as well.
Yeah, Jack.
Oh. It makes it easy. All right, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we, our primary goal here, we're very concerned with the size of these large pine trees and the proximity to our house. So they, we had the number of trees in the neighborhood. I think we know of at least 2 that came down on somebody's house and they had to, there was one instance where they came right through their bathroom. Fortunately, nobody was in that bathroom, but they were home. So anyway, they are very, very large, very close to the house, and we're just concerned with that. That's our primary goal, with just mitigating that worry and that concern. The storms, you know, seem to be getting worse and worse. We've lived in this house for 4 years, so you know, initially we were kind of concerned with it, but we weren't really. Once we've lived through it now for a few years with the wind and seeing how much comes down to for the limbs and things, it's just become a bigger and bigger concern for us. So that's our goal with taking out these pines. And then we would like to put in a fence to provide an enclosure for our newly adopted rescue pup.
Great. Chuck, do you have the plan that was sent to the commission? Could you share that? While we get that up there, so I'll be honest with you, I'm doing this, we're all doing it remotely. I'm doing it remotely out of state. So I didn't have the opportunity to do a site visit. Did anybody have the chance to do a site visit prior to this? I know Carl was going to try to get out there, but he couldn't make the meeting tonight.
I was able to get out there today.
Yeah.
And met the homeowner and the rescue pup. And Nicola was actually there at the same time as well. I did have some questions. There was a tree that was inside the 25-foot area that was requested to be cut down, and also the fence is inside. It's in between the 25. It's inside the 25-foot no disturb zone. So those were two questions that I had. Totally agreed with the trees that they requested to take down for, you know, the safety of the inhabitants and also the safety of the home. That's the only question I had.
Yeah, I mean, the one we're talking about inside the zone there is that 12-inch pine to be removed, right?
Yeah.
Kind of right around that notch right there.
Yeah.
Our only thinking there was like where we were putting the fence was pretty close to that, but like we can work around that.
Yeah.
We can leave that one. That's fine.
The only thing that I also want to know is what's the dotted line, the heavy dotted line that wends its way through that area?
I think that's where we're gonna have to put those what are they called, the mulch socks?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Jack,
Yep.
I think you can speak to that probably better than we can since you did this.
Yep, that's just the mulch sock to be put in. So when the trees go down and they grind the stumps, they're not going to excavate out any of the stumps, but we're just going to put in that mulch sock as protection during that process.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was noted on that, so I didn't see it in the legend either, so I didn't know what that was. But those are the only things that I had.
Yeah, it's labeled ECB on the line, and then you can see it over in the legend. In the legend.
Yeah, there's two areas, David, that it says ECB on that line. It's a little hard to see, but in the legend it says ECB equals proposed 12-inch mulch sock.
Got it. So are there anything else, Dave?
No.
Nicola?
No, I think Dave pretty much covered it. Most of my focus was on that one tree that's been circled that, you know, is further from the house within the 25-foot buffer. It's not of the same height as the other trees and a concern to the safety of the house. So that seems like one that could certainly stay there, in my opinion. And then the fence line, as well as Dave pointed out, cuts into the 25-foot zone as well.
Great. All right, thank you. The one thing I will say, no matter what the commission decides, I mentioned to Chuck and I think one other commission member recently, I was looking at this plan the other day, and Jack, I guess I'll give you credit, but Derek and Christine, you guys as well. I think I've liked this as like the standard for what we should expect when somebody's coming in for tree removal. What I liked is what I clearly see here is the 8 trees that you're proposing to remove, where you're proposing to replace, and I think it says right up in the top corner there, Jack, you would included like the proposed mitigation. So I think this is something we've been seeing a lot of, and I think having it all on this plan was helpful to make it clear. So I want to at least commend you on that. I thought this is like the standard for how I want these to look when they come in moving forward. So
I'll take that. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jack, I'd like to piggyback on what Mike has said. I know that many times when we receive this, I don't even have to look at the title block to know that this is your plan.
Great. Thank you.
That a lot of other people don't include.
Thank you, guys.
So I think that I obviously wasn't out there, but I would reiterate the concerns that. Sorry, I've got a 3-year-old that was walking in. I would reiterate the concerns with the one that's that close. If we can keep it that and there's no issue to remove it, I think that'd be great. There's 2 items that I think we generally do ask for on a project like this. The first is we ask that an arborist just do an assessment of each one of the trees. So, that they look at the condition, they say this is what they see. Ultimately, it doesn't necessarily have to be dead or ruined, but usually we're looking for an assessment of that there is good reason to take it down, or just reason. I think I look at the 32-inch pine and the 22-inch pine and see the proximity to the home and understand the concern. But I would like to try to keep that consistent. The one other thing that I know we've done in the past is when there's a tree on the neighboring property, which I know you've indicated on this plan that it says it's to be removed, and the abutter agrees. I think we've requested a letter from the abutter just confirming that that's the case. Go ahead.
We have that letter.
Okay.
I sent it to Chuck.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And it might have been included with the packet, and maybe I just wasn't looking for it. So good, excellent. Did you have? I know I tried to. Go.
With regard to the arborist, like we had a couple people come out and quote the trees and asked them for that letter, and they basically told us like the trees aren't diseased, so we're not going to write that letter. Is basically what we were told. So like our reasoning of them being too close to the house, according to them, was basically like that's between you and the commission.
Right. I mean, they were in agreement, like the size is what they are, and they are close to the house. So that's not going to change. But I don't think there was any ability for them to determine whether they are diseased or not.
Right. Yeah. When we talked to them, they were like, well, sometimes you just don't know. They come down and you're like, oh, look, this one was rotting or whatever. But like they were like, we can't go on record saying that they're a problem. And that was it. They're a problem from that perspective anyway.
Sorry. Chuck, do you mind? Well, I guess, were there any, Scott or John, did you guys have any comments or questions? Or?
Not really.
Okay. I guess, Chuck, I know this has been consistent, that we've generally tried to ask for a letter from an arborist. In a case like this, have we, particularly if we've said there's areas that are too close, that we just kind of let it go? I don't recall.
You're muted, Chuck.
I think I said at the beginning of this, we're still doesn't mean there's never hiccups with this remote stuff.
Can you call in?
Chuck, you're still muted. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, I just had a question. The proposed shrubs to be selected, I think that's what you indicated was the mitigation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why are these placed where they're placed? What was the reasoning behind that?
So I was under the impression that it was supposed to be somewhat natural in our replacement. But we're certainly willing to accept some guidance on where those go. We're not wedded to those locations. We would like to mitigate the removal of the trees to preserve the wetland and to preserve the area in as much as, the natural state that we can. So we're open to suggestions there. I think we might need some advice and guidance from a landscaper or somebody to help us with that once we get there. And so if we wanted to put some of that inside the fenced area, we could certainly do that. We're trying to our goal was to keep it natural and place it.
I think just to add on to that, I think the idea was to try to put the plantings within the 25-foot buffer zone so over time these would become natural enhancement plantings in that area, because it's somewhat open now. So by adding all the plantings within the 25, you're going to get a more natural look and you'll get a naturally vegetated 25-foot buffer that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, I haven't been to the site, but I'm curious just because the impact was further out. And I didn't know if where you placed it was, needed any enhancement per se.
Yeah, like right now, we were just talking about this before dinner. And right now, like when you look out there during the winter in particular, because the pine trees are so tall, there's basically pine trees, and then there's in many areas basically like invasive vine type cover. And there's nothing in between there. So you look out and you see basically out into the wetlands beyond or whatever, but there's no actual, it's pretty barren right now. And so like if we could provide something that would kind of fill in at a lower level, I think it would actually be a little bit more.
Well, I think also the invasive vine, we go out and we pull it every summer the best we can, but it has taken over and it's really hard. I think there's things growing in there, and I'm not a botanist. I don't know exactly, but I feel like it doesn't feel like it's healthy. It doesn't feel like it's what it should be. But like I said, I'm open to having somebody come in and give us recommendations for, where and what should go in to help it sort of rejuvenate a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, whatever you plant, I would strongly suggest you don't plant something that deer like to eat, because it'll just disappear.
Yeah, we've learned that.
Yeah.
Everything in our yard has gone through that experience.
You're still muted, Chuck.
So I had to call in. I don't know what this happened on this laptop before. So did I miss any questions?
So I guess my question,
we're cutting all the trees down.
We decided it's now 20. No, so it looks like that pine wants to stay. I think ultimately, it sounds like based on what David and Nicole have seen that the 7 that are there are close and they're tall, and there's a replacement plan. We talked a little bit about the getting an arborist to look at each one. I think what Derek and Christina have said that they asked someone to come out and they said, look, the trees are trees. And I don't know, it's funny, I don't know that we've actually ever run into that situation where they haven't offered a letter. But I think that is what it is.
Well, I think the last time you made fun of their letter. So
yeah, well, that may be the case. Yeah, I think they weren't criticized the letters. Maybe
to write a letter that the commission wanted. I think it's valid for an arborist to go out and assess the situation if there's some confusion or there's some ambiguity with the commission members about whether all the trees should come down or not. They are close to the house. But we learned at the Matera cabin site that they can be ranked, and even the town won't take them down unless they're at the highest ranking, and then it's an immediate removal. So there's, we're able to kind of follow their standard with that. And if the commission felt like they want more time to look at it while the arborist is going out there to evaluate the trees, then that would be another opportunity to request that. Are you locked into using Mare Tree, or would you consider using another tree service that had an arborist that would, come in and write something up that the commission could kind of reference with this project? That's for either Derek or Christina.
Go ahead. You've
yeah, I've really tried to get a lot of tree companies. They're very hard to get right now. So we were pretty confident with going with Mayor. I had tried a few different places. Some of them just never got back to me. Some of them said we're too busy. And then Iron Tree, I had the same response from both people when I asked for the letter. They just said, pine tree, they're large pine trees. That's basically all they can say. They can't really write a letter to determine the health. We were pretty confident in wanting to go with Mayor at this point, but I don't know. I mean, if there's,
it does.
I guess I don't even know what arborist we would I don't know who else to contact.
It does sound to me like the folks who came and visited the site seem to be in agreement that those were very large pine trees close to the house, right? And as far as like the impact that has, I mean, that's we've had tree companies out before to remove limbs that have fallen and gotten caught 100 feet up, or I don't know about 100 feet, easily 60 feet up, right, dangling over the backyard, and things like that happen just about every winter. So it's impactful to our ability to let our children play out there, particularly in the winter. Keeps me up at night during big storms, right? I'm always wondering, should we move everybody to the basement right now? To me, that's the larger impact here, is the size and the proximity
to our residents. Yeah.
If I can speak to this, it was very clear to me when I spoke with the homeowner when I was out there this afternoon that she has a lot of concern, not only for her children, but the new dog that she had in these large trees and what has already happened in the short time that they've lived in their home. I myself actually had, at one time, I had 12 large bull pines in my backyard. And every time that we had even, not even a severe thunderstorm, but even any kind of thunderstorm, I would have these large limbs that would come down in my backyard. Notwithstanding, when we had any kind of snowstorms, I would have the same thing. I would have limbs come down in my backyard to the point where I would look up at the canopy of these pine trees and say, with the number of limbs that come down, how are there any left that are up here? But still, every storm I would have, limbs come down. I had a limb that actually went down through the windshield and down through the floor of a truck that I had parked in my yard. I had a limb that came down through the roof and right down through the floor of the shed that I have in my yard. So when I hear people talk to me about the same thing, that they're concerned about safety for their children and their pets that are in their backyard because of these trees, because I have experienced it, I listen. And I think that we should listen to them as a commission as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are like David, I think, was saying, these are chainsaw limbs. They're not like they're not, you know, fold them up and take them down to the compost.
I can't lift them.
Yeah, I get that, and I think ultimately, you know, I think there's an aspect there that pine trees. We know the pines have shallow root systems, but ultimately we've tried to keep the standard of you know, if a tree doesn't have to go, or if it's not unsafe, then let's not take it down. You know, I think that's I get the issue, and I think we've all been on some of these projects, and I go back there and I look up and say, man, I can't believe these trees have gotten this tall and how close they are to some of these homes. But I think it's still in our interest to do the due diligence. I get it, but I just want to cross that you know that there have been sites where people have concerns, and we sit there and say, well, that it's just not, that concern may not necessarily be valid. I think that's what I want to make sure we understand, not just with this project, but any project where we're looking to take down a significant amount of trees, is that the reason for taking them down is valid, and that, you know, because, you know, it's great that we have these replacement policies, and they're doing their best to recreate habitat, recreate buffer, but they are, you know, we all know that it's not the same. We all know that we're taking something much larger and trying to replace it with something really small. So, you know, that's our best like fit to finding solutions where we know this is going to happen. You know, I think my goal is on each one of these is to limit it. I'm glad that you know, there was one that we right away said, oh, that's way back in the 25 foot. Let's take it off the list. I do hesitate. Look, I haven't been to the site, so I can't be one to sit here and say I have any one of these that I would look at the 7 other ones and say, well, there's no reason to take that down. So I just want to. I'm not pushing to sit here and say, well, there's no reason for one of those. I just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence.
And I would add that the tree guidance also asks for a qualified professional to write a letter and to evaluate the trees. So, you know, we have a policy, and to be consistent throughout town. And I always think of Mr. Poirier and all the time we spent on that. We have to be at least that consistent. Trees next to a house is not a reason just to have them come down. I mean, anyone that's lived in Brookline will know all the trees are right next to the house. They love them out there, and they're towering over the houses, and they wouldn't cut them down for any reason whatsoever. I think it's important to find out what a professional would say about these trees. It's important to know if any of these can be saved, and that information, you know, should be part of their presentation tonight. And if Mayor Tree doesn't want to do the work, you need to find somebody else or hire an independent landscape arborist to take on this part of the project.
Just I'll point out Anika and Martha. It's like you guys were able to join. So we have two additional commissioners that have joined the meeting, Martha Moore and Anika. Welcome, guys.
Thanks. It's a little noisy in my house, so I'm gonna mute.
That's okay.
So you all see these letters from arborists. We obviously don't. So like, what are we looking, will they make a judgment as to the safety in regards to the house, or will they make a judgment as to the health of the tree? Right? Because I'm submitting anyway, without having talked to them, that with having only talked informally to the folks that we've had out here, that they will say the trees, if I set aside the house, are in good condition from what we can tell.
So we have had letters, and so right now there's 6 pines on the list, and 1 maple, I believe, is what we're seeing. We definitely have. I know we've had letters. I think there was one on Havel Street that I recall, where what was presented to us was that these are really large pines. This is their root system, and their proximity, based on their height and their proximity to the house, they made a recommendation on those. It's generally the maples or the oaks that have, no matter how tall they are or how big the, how close they are, that the root system is there. So I think I'm in agreement with Chuck. I think we've set that standard of relying on a professional to assess that. I think we've gotten pushback from other people when we've come in and we've said we've required it for that location, and so I do think, while it seems to make sense here, guys, I want to keep that standard, because there's somebody else that will sit there and say, well, I was really nervous about my house too, and you saw how close that tree was, and you still made me get a professional to tell you that where this was and why we need to do it. And I think that's the standard that we've set in this town for how removal can occur. Anika, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Just a quick comment. I think one of the pines is off the property, but also proposed to be removed. So 7 pines. Thanks.
We talked about that earlier before you joined. We already said we wouldn't take that one out.
No, the one.
Oh, that one. Oh, that
so
one also. We have a letter for that already as well.
Yeah. So Anika, just so you know, there's a letter for the one that's off the property. There's one that's within the 25 foot, I believe it is, that we've talked about taking off, the one in the back.
Can we ask about the fence as well if we're going to have to come back, then I want to make sure we get.
Oh yeah.
I mean, our goal, we were trying to get this installed before the ground is frozen, but I don't know that. I mean, we're just trying to do everything that we can to do this the right way. It's just, not,
so the fence,
it's just not the process I expected, but so yeah, I mean, can we move forward on any of it?
So the fence that you're proposing in the back, inside the 25 foot there, is it proposed to come around on the property line, like towards the front as well, or is there?
Yep. There's it's basically right on the property line as you're looking at it on the screen here on the left. And then there's and then connecting to the house. I don't think it's pictured here, but it would do the same. There's a fence. Our neighbors have a fence along the property line on the right side as you're looking at it here, and we would connect it on that side as well.
Okay.
And
do you know what
the fence on the coming from the deck area and the sides of the house and going on the left side, the fence coming from the deck and then over to our property line and back would be 5 foot aluminum black fence that has the spacing between has the vertical, I don't know what you call it, but
yeah, has
gaps in it kind of thing. On the right side, there's an existing chain link fence, so we would basically just go over to that, let that run back to right around that tree that's sort of on the property line there, and then we would use chain link in the back as well.
So the goal with the fence was to provide a safe enclosure for our dog. We decided to pursue a real fence as opposed to the electric fence because, there are coyotes that come through our neighborhood, and I'm worried about that.
Okay.
One of the
Yeah, I mean,
about the fence is that even though as you look at it from the plan shows the fence that it's inside the 25-foot line, but that fence line pretty much follows what is the grass edge in the rear of the property as well. So even though it does show that it's inside the 25-foot line, it pretty much follows what is the meander and grass edge out in the backyard of the lawn, kind of the lawn edge, so to speak.
okay. Yeah, so that's basically all grass right now, or kind of a grassy area. I know that I think you said the pine needles probably make it bare.
Yeah, so it's either pine needles or just bare pine or grass, that kind of stuff.
The pine definitely covers a lot as they fall down.
I mean, I don't have any issue. I mean, the fence is pretty straightforward in my mind. I don't know if anybody else has comments, but
So what do we need to do to move forward here?
yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna. I don't want to be the one to sit here and just say that that should be the way. I want to open up to the commission. I mean, Dave, I think you've made it clear that you feel comfortable with these trees and what they've located, whether or not we have a letter. You know, I guess I would put it out to the commission. I think in general our standard has been to get this letter. Nicole, I know you were out there to see it, and you know, I know that the others of us haven't. So you know, I guess I would take. I certainly want to hear the opinion of the commission. Of, do we see this as something we should move forward with? Should we be looking for some sort of letter that just reviews those trees and provides some sort of opinion? Don't everybody else speak up at once.
I think it's important that we stick with our policy and continue to treat applicants in a consistent way.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, I can also understand from the homeowner's perspective, because I can imagine talking to contractors or arborists or whatever and not getting a letter that, yeah, I can imagine that'd be difficult because they would be inclined to say it's a healthy tree or it's not, but that's, so I understand needing more clarification about this letter that's in our policy. Because how can an arborist say whether it's safe or not? Like, how can an arborist make that call whether it can be removed or not? I feel like they're qualified to make the call of whether it's healthy or not.
I think actually, Hey, a lot of times, so I think Main Street is the example that we got at the 14 Main Street, where, you know, what had happened was they went through, when they actually rated, they gave trees kind of a rating system and said, yeah, this is either a concern because in general these trees are always a concern, or this is not and it's in a high wind zone, or this is not a concern because of the location. It's like, even if it fell, it's likely going to fall away. You know, if your homeowner, even if it fell, that might not, you know, with this type of proximity, you know, any falling may just be a problem. And so I think that arborists generally do have the ability to apply some sort of level of what's the concerns with safety here. And I think that's why we want to have that is, you know, I think there have been times where a homeowner has come to us and said, look, this is really close. And the arborist said, well, this particular tree, yeah, all these other ones seem to be at risk, but this particular tree or these two particular trees really aren't at risk, and you know that there's no risk of trees falling. And I think we want to be consistent with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes more sense.
So
Nobody knows.
Sure, and I would add that Mike Hannaford, who is our tree warden, has a list, and he goes out there and he checks it for stress cracks and disease and certain things, and he rates it after going through this checklist. So it seems like, an arborist can tell you how to save a tree and what it needs to maintain that tree, but they also can tell you whether it's in its decline and it's reached its natural lifespan. So that's what we're looking for. Sure.
The folks we're talking to basically told us like that what we hear is like, we could tell you if it has a disease, and I can make a determination if it's like you said, if it's obviously in its decline. But what I can't tell you is if it's just going to fall over tomorrow, because they're pine trees and that's what they do. Like, they have very shallow root systems, and when they go, they go. They can look like they're fine. Like we had one fall in the corner over here in 2016, 17, fell into the road. Nobody got hurt, but the guy said, I just had somebody out 2 weeks ago to look at the tree. They said it was okay. It fell into the thing. So I mean, we'll call around. We can have people.
I do want to say I understood the policy. I tried to get these things, so I didn't know who. So if it's Mike, is Mike Hannaford the guy who I need to call and have him? I guess I'm looking for guidance because I don't think the tree companies I've worked with are comfortable with. All they can say is that they are pine trees. They're large and they're close to the house. So if that's all you need, then we can do that. I can ask them again to do that. But if you need somebody to determine whether or not they are healthy or not, we want to take them out no matter what, because of their size and proximity to the house. They might be perfectly healthy, but we're still worried because I think perfectly healthy pine trees can still fall. So I think that's where we're coming from with this. So, and I do want to acknowledge that I understood that you guys wanted to see some kind of letter from a tree company or an arborist, and I did try to get that letter. It was hard.
It seems like they're just telling you that what can we say, and I think so I'm just trying to think of this practically. Like if I asked somebody to come in and give me an estimate on remodeling my bathroom, and they said, I could write something up, but I can just tell you, look, we're going to fix it. What I think you need to say is like, this is not the person or the company that's going to give me what I want. I mean, we've had a lot of people come through here with great letters. We did receive one from Mayor that was subpar, and it doesn't seem to be in their purview to want to do that type of work. We need the letter, and we need it not just to say that these are big pine trees and they're likely to fall.
What do you need it to? What more would you need it to say? If somebody said it was likely to fall, that would be good.
So the commission, so the commission evaluates. We do not guide. So I can give you some letters that we thought worked, but your arborist should know what we're talking about and be able to put together a letter. That's their expertise.
I just want to be clear. Hold on. I just want to be clear. If the letter said the tree was likely to fall, that would not be enough?
We're not asking. Yes, it's not enough. It needs to evaluate if it has symptoms. No.
Okay.
Well, it's for the arborist to put together.
Yep.
If you had a qualified arborist, this should be part of his training or her training.
Yeah.
But and evaluate the symptoms, the decay, any weakness, branches, certain telltale signs, and that's what we're looking for. I will send you a letter we received, and you'll see how that was put together. Okay, and that may help, and that may help you with the arborist.
I think if you're continuing to, Derek and Christina, I think what I would say is, in between this meeting, I think if you're continuing to struggle to get it, certainly reach out to Chuck again, and he can reach out to us, and we can, understand what their hesitation is and see what's going on. But, I think we haven't had issues with getting this in the past, so
Okay.
I think that's,
Okay, I do think this, to be clear, so do we need to present this at another meeting?
so generally what this, the process that would happen here is that we would continue and we would look to see that, to have that letter. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Is it possible to move forward with parts of the project without the tree removal parts? So if we do the fence without the tree removal, I don't even know if that's like, I'd have to talk to the fencing company to see if that's like a logical thing to do, but.
Chuck, would the fence normally just qualify as like a minor project?
So the way it was described, it's up to the commission. I think the way that Dave described it, I was out at the site also. And I just want to let you, Christina and Derek, I just want to let you know that I just want to be consistent with other people in town. So that's what the big effort around getting this letter is. The chain link fence we talked about when I was out there, I think that the way Dave Panett described that, it's on the existing lawn, no trees are being cut down to install it. It's generally on the 25-foot line, and it has those little openings in it because it's chain link, so it kind of meets the standards that we usually ask for. And it's up to the commission whether they would allow you to move forward with that part or not. I have not, in the past, I haven't given a minor project permit for a chain link fence that close, but if it was 50 feet away, I would have, if that helps, Mike.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. I guess I'm of the opinion that ultimately that this is the standard fence that we get to see, and like you said, Chuck, it meets our requirements. I'm fine with the fence, proceeding as is. I don't really have an issue with that, and understanding that you've got a pup running around that you want to make sure he's enclosed. So I don't have any issue with that if the commission agrees.
Are they planning to put a gate in the fence? I'm just wondering because if there's proposed plantings going beyond it and the fence goes up, is that going to cause issues? That's more.
Yeah, we were going to put a small gate back there.
Okay. Anika, sorry.
That's okay. Thanks for unmuting me. I'm again sorry about the background noise, and also sorry about coming into this partway through. One of my questions is, has there been any discussion of replanting at this point? Because it seems pretty clearly stated from the applicant that regardless of the health of the trees, they are interested in taking down a good portion of them. So have you guys already discussed replanting?
Yes, the replant. I've moved the plan down to show that they're going to remove. It says 8 here. I think we've changed that to 7. Is that correct? They'll be donating to the shade tree fund. They'll be planting 1 maple and 15 shrubs, and they're going to pick those from the native planting list. And then we've gone through the plan already, and one of the points that's not really highlighted is this fence, and the fact that the planting is in back of it is kind of going to create more of an isolated area, and it's going to contribute to the habitat here. And if some of I thought I saw blueberries. I must have read the application.
It's down at the bottom.
They would have been. Oh, it's on the bottom.
The owner has selected blueberry, pussy willow, sumac, and spice bush.
And those berry plants are very helpful in these areas. So it's great to see that. Yeah.
Right.
I like the sumac. That was, we don't see that much.
I tried to find, I tried to look for ones that wouldn't be potentially poisonous either to the children and the dog, because it sounds like some are. But I did.
Yeah, don't get the poison sumac. You're gonna have a lot of trouble. Okay, so I guess, Mike, was that you're going to ask for a motion for the fence and then a motion to continue?
Yeah, so I think what we're looking for is a motion for the fence, that they can get that piece of it moving, because that appears to be straightforward, and then we would have the motion to continue.
Make a motion to approve the construction of the fence as specified on the plan at 31 Lila Lane.
A second.
Anika seconds. Mike Flynn in favor.
David Panett in favor.
Scott Keefe in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Sorry, I'm not in. No, John, did we get John? And there's Martha. Sorry, Martha, I was looking for you.
Martha Moore in favor.
John
ahead,
Sullivan.
John. Thank you. All right, and then a second motion to continue.
Make a motion to continue the tree removal process at 31 Lila Lane.
Second.
Mike Flynn in favor.
David Panett in favor.
Scott Keefe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Anika, we see you nodding at your favor. Martha.
Martha Moore in favor.
Thank you. All right.
Mike, I think I didn't help you out too much, but I think we didn't ask if any neighbors wanted to see.
Yeah, I do. I know we continued, but in light of that, I guess we should. Are there any comments from the public? I'm seeing none. If you do have a comment and you feel like you didn't get it in, you can always email the Conservation Division webpage as well. Thank you, Chuck. All right. Thank you, Derek. Christina.
Thank you. See you next month. Bye.
Thank you.
Mike,
yep.
We have old new business, and I wanted to let you know that we have the town engineer, Alex Rosiski, on the scene, and he wants to talk about the water bypass plan for the track road bridge.
Great. Let's move it to the top. Alex. So,
thanks, Chuck.
Just to give everybody a recap here quickly, I think.
Is everyone from your team in, Alex?
Yeah, Barry's on his iPhone, and Richard Devana from AECOM are here. I guess I'll introduce it. Barry's obviously representing the contractor and Kenneth Fink, and if you guys have any further questions on constructability, he can feel free to weigh in or comment as he pleases. Rick's here for technical support, or if he has anything to add, I guess he'll chime in if he's still with us. I don't know, he might have dozed off at some point, but we're all here, so looking forward to hearing what you guys got.
Yeah, so we received the water control plan this week. I don't know if the other commissioners had a chance to review it. I did send Alex some comments to Chuck when we received it. Ultimately, I guess what I would just say is, Chuck, I don't know if you have the plan available.
Sorry, I just asked. I'm having trouble with this laptop, and I know you do. So if it would be helpful if you brought that up.
I can put it up.
I guess just while you're doing that, I'll kind of give a 5,000-foot overview. Obviously,
that'd be good.
Civil engineer with the town. We started the project on Track Road with Kenneth Fink. We put in the wetland mitigation on the downstream bridge. Actually, I think it held up very well. I saw Mike out there where I was knee deep in mud. You know, building a bridge is not easy work, and I think it's something that is a bit different than a lot of projects we have in town. So we actually, right after it happened, we had gotten about 4 inches of rain in the following week, and the water level came up quite a bit that a second erosion control was needed. Kenneth immediately responded to our requests upon getting them out there and getting that patched up to Chuck's liking and Mike's liking. And I was out there with them helping on that. And I've been to the site pretty much every day, keeping an eye on it since the project started about a month ago. The water levels dropped about 1.5 feet at least since those events, and we're getting into favorable dry conditions, at least for the foreseeable future. But it does sound like we're looking at early December for construction. The water level today is about 3.5 feet, and we can talk logistics on the pump and the volume of water we're looking at, but I think we all are aware at this point we are looking at a pump. Knowing what I know about Walker's Brook, if we were to try to do this via gravity, which I think we threw out a conceptual idea on, if the water level backed up 5 feet for a coffer-dam to run this enough via gravity, the people on Cross Street would be calling our office every day. There's about 1 foot of elevation between this bridge and Cross Street. So flooding out this would have repercussions upstream. I know it's not the optimal method, but I think that the weir box is something that I think I haven't seen professionally, and I think that's something that you couldn't have via gravity because we are able to control the flow between the weir box and the dirt bag and the turbidity curtain. I think it kind of lends itself to a pretty neat solution and a pretty cool engineering project. So if there's anything else, any specific questions, or I don't know if we're looking at the plans. Sorry, I got the video in front of me now, but yeah, if you're looking at it now on the lower part of the screen, that'll be the coffer dam and the sandbags essentially holding back the flow. That'll be sent up to the pump. That'll have to be on a level surface, sort of near the edge of the roadway, and we could add some erosion controls around that pump just in case there's any fuel spillage or anything like that. That'll run essentially across the road as it exists now, up the page to the weir box that settles the solids, and then a dirt filter bag downstream of that, and a discharge on that as well. So
I'm sorry, Alex. Just so I'm clear, when you're bypassing that, does that go to the weir box?
Sorry, okay. Only the submersible pump that's taking anything that's getting passed would go to the weir box. Yeah. The discharge itself, we've already talked to Kenneth Fink about moving the turbidity curtain past the discharge. So we have proposed that change internally. So there's a turbidity curtain and the sandbag dike there where your cursor is. I think we're going to ask for that turbidity curtain to be downstream of the discharge.
Okay.
To catch that, or add a second, whatever would be preferred for the commission. So you are correct. I jumped ahead there, and I didn't mention the sump pump, but that'll be necessary just to hold anything that's leaking by, and that'll be the dirtier stuff, rather than the discharge that's being bypassed.
Okay. I think sorry, I'm in a funny view right now, but I think I see Barry. Go ahead, Barry. You had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the 8-inch discharge that what we like to do is we like to pump the discharge across a plate so that there's no scour when you are bypass pumping. Something you have to worry about is not the solids, but the scour because of the velocity of the pump. So we put a 4x8 plate down underneath that to prevent any type of scour is what is most concerning with the bypass pumping. So that's, I don't know if that was on the plan, but that's what we like to do. Is if it's not a plate, we like to put a riprap pad, but I find that the steel plate is the best way to handle any type of a scour with the bypass pumping. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, so I did see that Barry, I think it says it right here, place steel plate at discharge.
Yeah, I missed that.
So
thanks, Barry.
I do have some questions. Anika, I see you've got a question, so I'll let you go. Go ahead first.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, let's see. I think I want to say yes, I'm totally in favor of a second turbidity curtain, perhaps downstream of the dirt bag, because my experience with dirt bags, as much as they do catch the fines, there are even some super fine particulates that do escape from the dirt bag. And we don't want that getting into the stream. I also had a question about how thick is the crushed stone layer under that dirt bag, and is it going to be built into the slope? And I had a question about the sandbag dikes. How do they get tied into the banks? So I can repeat some of those if you want, but I'll just throw them out there.
I think we got it, Barry. Do you want to take that, or do you want me to start? Or
yes, I would like to take that. So, as far as the crushed stone pad underneath the dirt bag, that's going to have to be on a level surface or somewhat gradual slope in order to work appropriately. So we'll have to set the bag up so that it flows down towards the stream, but it's not on such a slope that it's not doing its job. So that's something we'll have to look at when we're out there. And as far as the sandbag cofferdam and tying into the canal walls, we use poly for that and smaller sandbags. So you have a sandbag dam, the heavy bags, and then you'll have poly, and then you'll have smaller bags which tow in the poly and also tie it into the canal walls.
I think there might be a detail for it, but it's basically as Barry explained. I think what we're going to find at the bottom of Walker's Brook is going to be pretty mucky. So the crushed stone is really going to just be needed so we don't lose half the sandbags once they start getting in there. Because who knows the last time this was cleaned.
This is Rick Devanna, AECOM. Upstream, upstream, at the upstream end, that culvert, there's an existing culvert for a while, and there's a concrete slab underneath that. The bed is probably 4 inches deep or so. So you got, right on there. That structure that's remaining
wall
basically has an inverted slab underneath, so that's going to help any situation of erosion right there. It's not the same on the downstream, but that's what exists on that upstream end.
So I guess my questions, and I think my questions are kind of similar to when this was in front of us. Ultimately, is I still struggle with. So I think the water control plan says the work's not going to commence when a heavy rain event is in the forecast. If that a sudden rain event is coming, that the site's going to be stabilized and the in-water work will cease until a low flow condition returns. My question, and I think it was this back then, was what qualifies as a heavy rain event? and when's the flow low enough to be manageable again? How do you guys know when's the right time to get out of there, what this system can handle? I think, Alex, what I heard was, the idea, the intent of this, particularly this upstream one, is you don't want this to back up, because, this doesn't back up normally. Creating some sort of pool here will back up the entire system and flood other people out.
Yep.
Which certainly something you don't want to do, which makes sense. I guess the challenge is, that the pump system that you seem to have is, that the 10-inch pump, I know has a decent capacity, but does it? Sorry.
No, I can try to quantify that. No, I know. I think I had this question earlier, and Barry can back me up if my numbers are correct. So I essentially went out today, and Ryan and I took depth of the water and basically velocity of a stick that was going by the bridge, and we calculated a flow rate about 3.5 cubic feet per second currently. And Barry's pumps, I believe, are rated to about 12. So we'll know pretty quickly. I can't tell you the exact rainstorm offhand of when we're going to have 12 cubic feet per second, but if the water depth is about 3.5 feet right now, we've got a couple feet of head before we get ourselves into any sort of problem. And as I understand, the work's only scheduled for 5 days. We're not doing this at a time where a severe thunderstorm is going to come by and drop 1.5 inches of rain. It's a time of year where we could have a pretty good 5-day forecast, 7-day forecast. And, like I said, I don't have the rainstorm, but we do have the pumps rated for 12 cubic feet per second. That handles, if you have the tech spec attachment, there's only about 2% of the time Walker's Brook is operating at that flow rate. So for 98% of the year, or 98% of the conditions on Walker's Brook, his one pump is sufficient. It'll take a bit for us to be worried, but if the plug has to be pulled, the plug has to be pulled. Those sandbags could be out in a second. I think it's a tech spec from the highway division that AECom wrote, not the pump performance curve. Not that anyone's interested in those. So I gotta find my charger. Let's think here.
So we're really trying to cut down on the duration of the project and try to limit our exposure. So these culverts are rapid construction, and where it's a clamshell culvert, we're only going to be putting in the bottom pieces, or the bottom half, if you will. So once we have the bottom half in, we're no longer going to have to be bypass pumping. So with that short duration, we should be able to identify what the weather is going to be like for the week. And that should really allow us to not get into a situation where the pump is not going to be overwhelmed, because we're not going to be dealing with, say, a summer downpour or something like that.
And I think that makes sense. I think I had that same thought and comment last time, is ultimately you're not in there for very long, which is good. And you're in there for a duration where you can have an outlook of the forecast and say, well, we're not gonna mobilize because, a week out from now or 3 days out from now, we see 2 inches of rain on the schedule. I guess what I'm hoping is formalized in this plan so that it's clear to everyone that has that understanding is, what is that rain event that we say, is it 5 inches? Is it 2 inches? Is it 1 inch? Because I do think that's important to understand before you just block this off and try to bypass. And then the other piece of my concern, and maybe you know this, and Alex, looks like you were looking at the pumps a little bit, and you've got the flows, but the 10-inch pump, my impression is it has high volume capacity. It's probably going to draw down that zone really quickly. I guess, is that too much? Like, to me, I saw that 10-inch pump and said, well, they're planning on a larger storm. They're planning on rain to come, and they're protecting from that event. I like that the whole plan would be, no, let's get in and out without that event even being in the forecast. I guess my thought would be, is that, pumps, you don't want a pump to be too small because it's not going to be, obviously it's not going to keep up with the flow in the brook. You also can't have it be too big, because what happens is it draws down the 3-foot water table. It has too much capacity. It draws it down. It comes up and it just has an issue with starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And I guess I wanted to make sure that we thought that piece of it through, is if what is the event that you're not going to get into the water? And then if that's the case, is this the right pump for that normal flow?
So I would say two things there. I think anything more than an inch of rain, inch and a half of rain would be an event that we would plan on not working, just based on my experience in working in waterways. And the second thing would be with the 10-inch pump is you can idle that pump down. It runs between 600 and 1800 RPMs. So you have a range there where you can, you can start at 1/3 of power and go up to 2/3 or go all the way up to 1800. So you can run the pump at 700 or 800 RPMs so that you don't draw down the whole waterway more than you would like to. Or you could even shut the pump off if you felt like that 600 or 700 RPM was not, was still drawing down too much. You could shut it down completely. So it does give you control over how much water you're pumping at any given time.
Yeah, no, Mike, I certainly see your point. We could have easily went with a bigger pump, but I don't want the brook drying up and then having the pump sputtering all the time. So I think Ryan and I happen to, I think it's in the contract spec section. I've got it on my phone, but it's under the control of water item. And we basically broke down the flow rates and their percentage probabilities. And the math, essentially the pump handles up to 15 cubic feet per second before it kind of gets off the curve. And that represents 93 to 96% of the flow that this brook sees. So knowing that, in Barry's experience, my guess would be looking at Walker's Brook after we got 3 inches of rain, that's not a situation that I would want to be in. So I would say if there's an inch of rain in the forecast, we can write that out, that we will not get in. But this pump is sort of in the sweet spot of where, AECOM did a full stream survey for us, and this pump was selected for this unique scenario.
Okay. All right, and that's, so that maybe that answers what was going to be my next question in line with Barry's is, so is the intent to have the pump potentially just running through the night so that bypass continues? Is it going to be set on a system so that if the upstream dike gets to a certain level, it turns on? You're gonna have it on.
It'll be on. Okay. I think rather than kicking on and kicking off, it's a quiet pump, and it's going to be tough, but it's a maximum of 5 days. We'll set it at the setting that the stream. Walker's Brook, I don't know if people have been out, it really doesn't move. I think I saw Nika when I was mud deep at Cross Street. We have, as a town, a big problem at Walker's Brook, and this is the first step of getting in there, but Walker's Brook doesn't flow at all for a lot of days. So that's another piece of it. So it'll be easy to manage in that sense. We're not dealing with a tidal issue or an intermittent stream, or it's very manageable as far as its up and down or its volumes.
Are there Any other questions from the commission? All right, so I think what I've heard is, that you guys have been looking at the appropriate pump. I think Rick has kind of made an indication that both you and Alex, you guys have reviewed the water control plan and the size of the pumping as part of that process. And then ultimately, I think what would be great to, I would like to see, and it sounds like there's going to be some edits anyways, is to just have that clear in the water control plan of the whether it's an inch storm that we're not going to be getting. I realize that it's short duration, but I think that's an important part of that plan is, before we get in there, let's look at that forecast. Let's see if there's an event in the period that we're going to be in there and manage it that way. I think that gives comfort that we know this, that the system can handle it when you guys are out and doing this in-water work.
Yeah, and I'm fine adding certain notation, but I do want to stress that it takes a while to get these culverts built, and it's scheduled to arrive before your next meeting. So further delaying this could end up really being a detriment to this project. So if it's at all possible, we could accept the plan, or I don't know if you even need to vote on it, but I just want to note that, we time's ticking.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard everything I need. I think I have no problem issuing some sort of vote as amended, based on our conversations tonight.
Okay.
I think that's acceptable. I'm glad that Alex and Barry and Rick, you guys were all able to come in and kind of explain it, because ultimately looking at the water control plan, there were certain items that weren't necessarily clear. But no, I think from my standpoint, and unless anybody has a different opinion, I don't have an issue with issuing some sort of, because I think what we had indicated in the notice of intent was reviewed and approved by the condition. I have no problem issuing a vote tonight as amended, based on the conversations tonight.
Sure, and if there's any other questions, we're here. I will also say, if this one goes well, we're hoping to still do the next one down. So everyone keep their notes handy, I guess, in case any more grant money comes in.
Good.
Mike, do you have that amendment?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Sure. I was asking if you and Alex could come up with that amendment. Alex wants to put a note in the plan. I would assume it would say something like, if rain is in the forecast within the next 72 hours, 1 inch, can't start.
Agreed. I think there's that.
You could add more to it, but that's the start of it.
Yeah, that might be there, but I'll certainly clarify or review that notation and talk with Rick and Barry on their comfort level and send it off to you guys as soon as possible.
Great. I think I do like, I don't want to get lost too. I do like that you guys have already, it sounds like you guys have already commented, but and I know Anika said this, but moving the silt line down, downstream of the discharge point. I think that's a good idea. So
I just want to ask Barry while I got him here, because Barry, does it work with a turbidity curtain downstream of the discharge, or is that gonna take off with the discharge?
I think we just put it, say, 30 feet past. We just don't want it right in the.
Yeah, I would assume it would just take off downstream if we put it right at the discharge.
I think as long as we're, like 20 or 30 feet past, it's going to knock down any of the suspended solids in the waterway, and I don't think it should cause a problem.
Okay. And I think that was it.
Just another question. So this note, is this? So I was, when I was, we were discussing this, it seemed like we'd want to see what the note says as part of our approval. Now, Mike, you're kind of leading this conversation. How do you feel about that? They're going to write the note after the approval. How can we write it into the amendment?
You can write it if you want, and we'll sign it.
I think we've got verbally.
Can we come up with something that's close right now? I mean, that everyone agrees with, since we're all here.
Work shall not commence in stream if rains forecasted over 1 inch are within the working period.
And I think the 1 inch might have been a conservative.
Yeah, I would imagine. Too.
I think that it's more like 1.5 inches or 2. So if we could put 1.5 inches on there, I think that would still be conservative.
And the work period is what, 7 days or 5 days? Is that what you mean?
Yes, we're 6 working days. So we're looking at Monday through Friday is the goal, but if we don't get complete, then we're going to work Saturday or ask to work Saturday. So that would be the 6th day. So 1 work week.
So if 1.5 inches of rain is in the forecast for the work period, which is 6 days, the works will not commence.
That's fine with me.
Is that what we agree on?
Yes.
Okay.
Like it.
Yeah, we just anecdotally, we got about 3 when I saw you out there, Mike, and the brook came up about a foot, and I think that's about how much we'll make it come up just to get it pumped out. So I think we're okay with that number, and I think we can handle more. But that sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
And it was an additional turbidity curtain 30 feet downstream
of the discharge.
Was there another one?
Those are the 2 notes I had, but if anyone else has anything.
I had. All right. I think that was it.
So we're looking for an approval of this water bypass plan with the amendments of no rain in the forecast of 1.5 inches within the work period, or work will not commence, and an additional turbidity curtain at a distance of 30 feet downstream of the discharge. Someone wants to just say, make that motion. You don't have to repeat it, just say I make that motion.
As Chuck indicated.
And then you ask for a second. Anyone want to make that motion, or do you want to just say?
Go ahead.
So moved.
I lost my audience. Want me to start again?
Do I hear a second?
Martha Moore seconds.
All right. Michael Flynn in favor.
Favor.
Todd Keefe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Anika? In favor. Thank you.
Martha Moore in favor.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Mike, can we move to Will Finch?
Yes. Hey, Will. Wait, is Will? I thought I saw Will. Did we lose him?
Yep, I just sent him a text to see if it comes back.
Okay.
I can tell you what Will was asking.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the Millette property, we had a grant to. So the Millette property, we had a grant to build the trail system out there, and the Trails Committee received this grant. Been working on it. A little bit of money left over. there's a field out there, and they were thinking about using some of that grant money, which is appropriate grant, for some picnic tables. There is also an MVP project that hasn't been granted yet for detention system, which will use a lot of that open field area for a constructed wetland, which will end up being a, Megan is, Mike, if you want to let Megan, that will defend, which will end up being the detention system. And my only concern was if we get this grant, there may not be any area to put the picnic tables down. But Will and the Trails Committee said that they feel like they could find a spot. And they also wanted like a concrete pad to put it on more permanently. I felt like that wasn't appropriate until we know that we either getting this grant or we didn't get this grant. But, here's Will, and let's see what he has to say. Will, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I just set up just a little bit about the grant and whatnot, but you can take it from the spot if you want to.
Yeah, I realize there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think the picnic table we're proposing would be portable and could be moved. I agree with Chuck that we don't want to put down a concrete pad anywhere. So at this point, it would just be one handicap accessible picnic table, probably to the north end of the meadow, maybe north of, there's a small or medium-sized fruit tree, apple tree probably. So it'll be to the north side of that in the shade most of the time. Let's see. Yeah, there's some video. Yeah, any other questions or issues? Or?
No, I mean, I don't really have an issue. I think the more we can promote the use of these areas, the more people will be grateful for them, the more that we can protect them. So I think that's, I don't really have any issue with it.
Yeah, we have gotten
Anybody
a lot.
else?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Like I say, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on a picnic table in that area, just from they're somewhat biased, so I look forward to your input too.
Yeah, I think my only concern with picnic tables is sometimes they invite trash. But I think ultimately the goal is to get this area, have people be able to use this area, and I think this will help that. So.
Yeah, it does seem like this area was well received. We got a lot of pushback when we first introduced it. I'm going to say we because the Conservation Commission was part of this, but the Trails Committee has built the trails and has been out there and got the volunteers from the community, and it's almost night and day compared to how it was received when it was first introduced. A lot of people are telling us their son, daughter, they go down there every day and use the trail system, and it's really nice. This area was unused. I mean, the only thing that it was good for was some sort of wilderness trapper to go in there and use that place themselves. Was open space, conservation land. It's been part of that many decades. Now it's finally opened up. People can get in there and they understand why we set aside these areas. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Will, but you can definitely give an update on the project too.
Yeah, so we're in the final stage of our the trail project. Just another, you know, probably 20 feet of a bog bridge, and then a small retaining wall that Chuck looked at, or proposed retaining section would only be 8 inches high, just to retain some wood chips, so there wouldn't be a side slope on the trail. Yeah, we're we're just waiting for those materials to come in so we can do the final build. There's been quite a demand on pressure treated lumber in the last 6 months or so.
That's good.
And even one of the local residents that initially expressed reservations about the trail has been giving us a lot of compliments lately. So I think that we've really turned a lot of people around there.
Not that we are necessarily the ones that would hear if this was the case, but have you heard any complaints? I know there was a concern about parking, and I think it was Lee Street, or I forget which one it is down there, but we haven't heard anything about issues with.
There was some issues on Hunt Street, and I'm not, I haven't seen, when I've been down there, I haven't seen any excess cars in the area. So it may just be neighborhood use, but I can definitely report that I haven't heard of any, and no one's called me, complained about parking.
I was thinking about heading over to this one not that long ago. My son told me that the bridges in Bear Meadow aren't impressive to him anymore.
Yeah.
Whenever we go somewhere for a hike, he says, I want to walk over a bridge. So I had this one in mind, but I also thought, well, I don't want to be the person that's parking on Hunt Street there when they're complaining. So
Yeah, no, I haven't heard any complaints. I mean, I'm surprised people haven't complained about us when we have a work day and we do drive down into the meadow area to bring in our materials. But even in that case, we haven't gotten any pushback. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, the meadow off Willow Street is open. You can drive down there, Mike, and park and feel comfortable, and it's a big open field, at least for now.
Are we allowed to drive down? I mean, I know when we went to visit the site, we drove down there. Are we allowed to just drive down there and park? I don't even remember.
It's paved all the way along the property line of that last house, and then paved along the back half of it. So there's some sort of pavement out there, and so you're not going to mess anything up.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing specific that allows or prohibits it. I think we want to limit parking down there to trail project personnel at this point, and I think in the future we may want to allow handicap parking down there, but only handicap parking. That was just something that came up in the field recently. Which, you know, we need to. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. I think there's no place to park. So I think you know, the commission should be part of that conversation, and again, it's all about this MVP project, and in that project there was parking and there was handicap parking. So and it's going to be right at this edge. There was a couple of things that we asked for. It didn't seem like it was restricted. You know, you have to get. So one of these things about the grant is you have to get other communities to use it, and they're not walking down here. So parking's important, and there's only that small pull-off on Willow Street. So it did come up. It was discussed a little bit. We haven't seen a plan that shows parking, but I don't understand with the fact that there is no parking, why we wouldn't create a spot that could be managed, you know, for a couple of cars.
The problem is that the access is complicated by the railroad crossing and those yellow posts that are of a safety nature to keep people from getting out of the proper lane when they cross the grade crossing. I think it'd be good possibly to improve that pull-off area that you were speaking of, Chuck, on Willow Street, to make that a formalized parking area. And it could even be enlarged because there's town-owned property right there. And this, that could be, improved vastly in terms of, public access.
I think it's owned by the water department.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so, yeah, maybe they'll allow us to improve that. Here's the access road right down here.
Yeah, and you take that, and I remember parking like right in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's something to think. It is tough getting out. I will say that, and you have to turn around and come up the right way and pull in. But
right,
it's not a showstopper if it doesn't happen. But parking, having a place to park when you get somewhere is always nice. But that's not. We're talking about.
Yeah, it was really just an update on the project overall. It's good to hear that everything that's being done there is getting appreciated and used. So.
Mm-hmm. I did notice that Mike Rondoni has mowed all the knotweed down in that meadow area, so you can hardly tell that there is knotweed there. So maybe if he or someone else keeps mowing it, that it'll discourage its regrowth.
Yeah,
and I know
he's done quite a job out there.
Yeah, I know it takes 5 or 6 years to get rid of this stuff at least, but.
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's great.
For the picnic table, do we need to vote on that? I mean, it seems like a.
Well, that would be helpful in the sense that the administrator for the Trails Committee is planning on ordering the picnic table soon, and it's a fairly costly item, around $1,000. So.
Do I hear a motion? Go ahead, Scott.
Are we making a motion to approve the picnic table?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve the picnic table.
Do I hear a second?
Second from Martha Moore.
Michael Flynn in favor?
David Knet in favor.
I'll keep in favor.
Scott.
Yep.
John? Go ahead.
John Sullivan in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Great. Thank you, Will.
All right, thanks a lot.
Good meeting. All right. I have something else to insert. If you are ready for that, Mike? Sure. Okay, so at the two meetings ago, we approved the certificate of compliance for 17 Lynetta Lane, Lot 4. And I have received a request that we release the $2,500 bond for Lot 4. So I need a motion for that, and I could send that bond back to the applicant. Again, this is a site, number 17 Lynetta Lane is the one that we just did the certificate of compliance on. So the commission had gone down there, checked it off, and everything is built in compliance, and we're satisfied with the work. The trees were planted about a year and a half ago, so that shouldn't be a problem. The only way you could hold off one more winter, if you felt like it, to see if those trees survive, because this is the side that was heavily planted. They look like they were doing fine when I checked it out.
I guess if they look like, I haven't seen them in a while, but if they look like they're doing fine, I don't think I'm opposed to releasing the bond at this point.
Yeah, I think a year and a half is good.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we've said for a couple other projects too. So.
Make a motion to release the bond for 17 Lynetta Lane.
Second.
Mike Flynn in favor?
David Sinet in favor.
Scott Keefe in favor.
John
Martha
Sullivan
Moore
in
in
favor.
favor.
John, we got you in favor.
John Sullivan in favor, yeah.
And Anika?
It's all right. We have 4.
Okay. Sorry, Chuck, you said that was it?
I don't know what happened to Anika, but we have 4, so that's fine.
She gave a thumbs up.
I don't know, there's something up with the internet tonight. There is no minutes. I received the minutes today, and I felt like it would have been unfair for me to send them out to the commission, so that'll be in the packet for the next meeting. But I was going, and I was curious, and I was going to ask Anika and Martha for an update. Maybe Mike, you were going to do that too. I don't know if there was something else you wanted to talk about, but I would certainly like an update on the Birch Meadow Master Plan meeting that they attended.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I had that I wanted to hit is an update on 30 Quetzet. Carl got out there today. He did reach out to me after he was out there, and the homeowner actually reached out to us to understand his path forward. But Carl was out there. He's going to send a summary to the commission, but I guess he had recommended, some plant, what could be planted for the replacements based on what we had last meeting. I don't think we had anything where that necessarily had to come back to us. I think we had said, let's pick a quantity, the quantity should be 4 to 5, and let's have it make sense. But, but we wanted Carl to be able to kind of look and see if there was what made sense for planting. Now I see Anika twice. So that was just a quick update there. But yeah, I think it would be, I'm interested as well to hear how the Birch Meadow went, Anika and Martha, if you guys have any sort of update.
Hi, this is Nika. Yeah, I changed devices because I think I was unable to unmute in the other one. So I'll let Martha chime in as well. The landscape architect introduced their proposed preliminary conceptual design, introduced that they've been working on it for 9 to 10 months, mentioned that Chuck and Martha were involved with a number of the meetings. They mentioned that they did, that they reviewed all of the previous master plans and surveys that before they came up with a conceptual design. And so they highlighted some existing issues with the Birch Meadow complex, facilities in disrepair, court floors for better, I can't think of the right name, poor inconsistent signage, poor fencing, insufficient lighting, insufficient parking, poor stormwater management, and poor handicap accessibility. They kind of prioritized all those, and what ended up kind of filtering out based on the stakeholders they had talked to was the drainage, sports storage, lighting, parking and walking paths, and basically they said their highest needs were more lighting, more passive recreation, concession and restrooms, and more turf. So they proposed a list of things: turf behind Coolidge, some new artificial turf field behind Coolidge, which according to the map, it didn't look like it was in our jurisdiction. Additional parking along Birch Meadow Drive, parallel to Birch Meadow Drive at the Imagination Station, and some increased green space there, plantings and walking paths. Improving the need to improve the track and turf at the high school stadium. The installation of an additional large synthetic turf field between Turf 2 and Birch Meadow Drive, where they fit in it one large soccer field and 2 softball fields. They didn't touch Castine Field. They recognized that that was all jurisdictional wetlands. They want to add a concession building between Turf 2 and Morton Field. They see educational opportunities at Castine and in the vegetated area near Imagination Station. They added lighting and pathway structures to Morton Field and additional plantings. Dedicated batting cages. My list goes on and on. I know I'm rambling, I'm sorry. They want to put in a lacrosse wall somewhere. They did talk about parking along Birch Meadow Drive, just as you exit on the west end, just as you exit the residential neighborhood. There was a little proposed parking on the left, right near the Higgins, possibly the Higgins Conservation Area. I don't know where the road limit ends and Higgins begins, but it looks like it's in both. Additional parking, breaking into Birch Meadows, the school's property, the place where the kids play around in the trees. Added pickleball courts, well, that kind of doesn't, expanding the Rise parking lot, adding pickleball courts between the hot lot and the high school Rise parking lot, added basketball courts between the high school parking lot and the baseball field, and enhancing and improving the high obstacle course. So it looked a lot different than a design plan I saw in September. They're not proposing to touch Castine, which I was grateful to see. They acknowledged that there was jurisdictional wetlands there and river areas. And I'm just going to stop there and let Martha pick it up.
They also very quickly said they were planning to present it to the Select Board and the Conservation Commission in December. And they said they think they're on the Select Board's agenda for December 8th. And I had my hand raised but never got called on, so I didn't get to ask whether I was understanding that correctly, that they're planning to come to us in December. And I'm a little concerned. They said that turf field they're going to put in behind Coolidge, they're planning to expand the area of the play space that's there now. And I know there's a vernal pool behind Coolidge, so I don't know how much they're expanding and how close they're going to come to that vernal pool. So that would be a question to ask. They were suggesting that they could improve the stormwater control when they install the parking in the Imagination Station area, because right now any rain just goes over land and into the Aberjona there, and they would put in oil and water separator or something like that when they put that parking area in. That's all that I noted that Anika didn't cover already.
Did they indicate what's the next steps for them? What's the path forward? Sounds like sounds like you plan on talking to us, but it sounds like you're going to the Board of Selectmen. I guess, was there a lot of, you didn't have a chance to comment, Martha, but were there a lot of comments or questions, and did they have any indication of where it goes from here?
All of it is conceptual because there's no funding for it yet. And so the idea behind it, they said, was to lay out a plan so that if a group comes up with money to, say, put in a lacrosse wall, that it doesn't get put in the place where there was something else that somebody else might want. So they're not expecting all of this to happen immediately. They're expecting it might take up to 10 years to do this. And they had sort of 3 buckets of priority of things that were immediate concern, things that were sustainable, and things that were visionary. And the 2 turf fields were visionary, being the most expensive. So I think the idea is to get this master plan approved, and then perhaps tackle an item or 2 at a time, moving towards the ultimate goal of having this project. There was questions from the audience. They went about half an hour with questions maybe after the presentation. And somebody suggested putting parking in just across the stream from Castine Field at the corner of Birch Meadow Drive, where it loops around there. And I think it was Anika, but it might have been somebody else, said that that area is under agreement. When the high school was rebuilt, that they agreed that that area would be vegetated, so that they couldn't put parking there.
Okay.
And there was a concern from one of the residents about the parking on the curve at the end of Castine Field that was designated as head-in parking along there, about less than 10 spaces. But his suggestion, the resident's suggestion, was that would be very dangerous for people backing out of those parking spaces into the traffic flow going around the curve there.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you guys for attending. I think it was helpful to have a presence there and be able to hear what was going on. I think that was probably the most we've seen. So I think that's good that we had you guys there. All right. Is there anything else? I'm hearing none. Chuck, you got anything?
I don't. Our next meeting's in December. Right now, I don't have anything from any applicant. So at the next meeting, we're going to have to review the calendar and make sure that all the calendar dates for the conservation meeting line up with when people are around, have a quorum. That's the only pressing item so far. Obviously, the work at 1312 Main Street.
Yep. Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Almost.
Can I get a second?
John Sullivan seconds.
Raise your hand if you're in favor. Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone have a nice Thanksgiving.
Good night.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dave. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
The date for December meeting? We have a date for the December meeting?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. The 9th? December 9th.
Okay. Yep, that's what I have. Okay, thank you. See ya.
All right.
All right.